right, good morning. Good morning. Today is March 16th, 2025, and welcome to our devotion in the Passion Translation, the Minor Prophets. Today's the 89th day of us doing this daily devotion, and we are in the book of Malachi. Yesterday we finished the introduction, and today we're in chapter 1. It is Sunday morning. In our area, we have a weather warning of very high winds for this day, and so I'm looking outside and seeing, I don't know if you can hear that. It's easy to hear in the room here, but I don't know if you can hear how high the winds are. It's kind of white outside, so I haven't really gone out to see if it looks like it's going to rain, but we had a lot of rain yesterday, and we have just this storm that we're in the middle of, which has brought us snow this week. Our winds in the part of town that I'm in are supposed to get, the gusts are supposed to get between 50 and 65 miles per hour. And then I guess our rain starts around 11 today. So it's 7:30. We're going to get started here. How's your day going so far? I hope you're doing well wherever you're at. And this first chapter in Malachi is sobering, and it's talking about how the Israelites kind of lost sight of believing that God loved them. And I have been learning so much about how what we believe affects our actions. And so this core belief of beginning to erode in them that God doesn't love them, which happens to a lot of us in certain circumstances when we're going through trials, it can be a huge temptation. I think that belief can lead to actions that we will see here that bring on a lot of judgment and a lack of favor in their nation from the Lord. So here we go. This is divine revelation, the message Yahweh gave to Israel through Malachi. That word message can also be translated burden. And I thought it was interesting because it is possible to be burdened by God's messages, and we don't have to always think that they are going to be cheerful messages, which seems to be what our modern society can only tolerate, or our modern church, which isn't right. We need to know we are in a new covenant with a God who's completely satisfied with us because of what Jesus did for us. There's nothing about trying to satisfy him anymore. So he's not going to change in the way he views us, but there is sometimes a burden that can come over us that is a message or an unction from the Lord. And anyway, in verse 2, Yahweh says to you, I've always loved you. I just want to think about that for a moment. I have always loved you. That's what he says. I think about that song from the 90s. And I will always love you. Remember that? It was such a pretty song. It's what God's singing over us. He's saying, I've always loved you. But you ask, how have you shown us your love? Well, I have to confess here, the other day I was talking to my daughter, and she did not do something that I asked her to do that seemed so simple, and it really got me angry. And so she left the house, said, bye Mom, love you, as she's going off to work, and I bantered back, I don't know about that, or something. And it was really childish of me, but it's the same kind of interchange here where I wasn't sure about her love for me because she was so unwilling to whatever move, take the trash out or something crazy like that. And it was a time when my back was out, so I needed a little extra help. And anyway, that's how the Israelites are behaving here. They're asking God, how have you shown us your love? And okay, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt as well, because they've been going through some stuff and some silence and some hard years. And so they're kind of just like challenging him. I, Yahweh, say to you, were not Esau and Jacob twins? Yet I've loved Jacob and his descendants more than Esau and his descendants, whom I rejected. And I have turned the hill country of Esau into a barren wasteland, and left his land to the desert jackals. The people of Edom vow, though we have been shattered, we will rebuild the ruins. But this is what I, Yahweh, commander of angel armies, say. You may build, but I will demolish it again. People will call you the wicked land, and the people under the perpetual anger of Yahweh. Let's read in verse 3 about Esau and Jacob here. Jacob was the one who the Israelites came from, and Esau was the person that the Edomite tribe came from. Both of Isaac's sons, these are the two sons of Isaac, had an equal opportunity to lay claim to the covenant of God, which was their birthright. But Esau abandoned his claim to the birthright, and Jacob schemed to steal it from the firstborn Esau. That's in Genesis 25, near the end of that chapter. Although the Hebrew is simply, I have loved Jacob and hated or rejected Esau, Jacob and Esau are to be viewed as metonyms, representing the Israelites and the Edomites, descendants of Esau. Okay, and then on page 440, Israel, you will witness this with your own eyes and say, the greatness of Yahweh extends even beyond our own borders. Even the people that don't live there are going to begin to declare the greatness and the faithfulness of God. All right, and then this next section is how they were demonstrating that they were not reverencing God, fearing God, loving God, but this is their actions, and it comes in the way that they offered sacrifices to him. I, Yahweh, commander of angel armies, say to you, priests, sons, honor their fathers, and servants, respect their masters. Yet if I am your father, why don't you honor me? If I'm your master, why don't you respect me? You've despised my glorious name. But you ask, how have we despised your name? And the Lord answers, you place defiled food on my sacred altar. And then they ask again, still they ask, it says. So twice they came back at the Lord. It's beyond me. How have we defiled you? So they want to know how they've despised him, and then how have they defiled him. And he said, by treating Yahweh's table as though it deserves no respect. Is it not wrong to offer your blind, lame, and sick animals as sacrifices to me? Try offering them to your governor. Would he be pleased with you? Would he show you favor, says Yahweh, commander of angel armies? Okay, I just had a funny memory pop up in my head. I'll be vulnerable and share this with you. I was in church on the way, Jack Hayford's church. It was around 1991, maybe. I was at a Ron Canoli concert there. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. I hope I'm getting the place of all this right. It could have been later on. It could have been when I moved to Santa Cruz. It was when I think it was not Church on the Way. I think it was in San Jose, and there was a Ron Canoli concert, and I think it was about 1994 or 5. And I was sitting there um, in the music part, in the, I guess it's worship, and there was a black lady behind me. She was elderly, and I opened a piece of my mail in my seat there and was reading a piece of mail. And I felt her hit me on my shoulder, and she leaned over to me and said, I can still hear her voice, show some respect for the Lord. Show some respect. And I was so, um, I wasn't corrected. I even to this day, in fact, until right now when I'm reading this, I'm realizing that she was basically saying to me, uh, you've defiled my sacred altar. Um, you've treated my table as if it deserves no respect. And I just remember her saying that to me, and I kind of put my mail or this letter back into my purse and stopped reading it and didn't look at her. And I kind of felt assaulted that she had hit me on the shoulder. She didn't even know me. But she felt like she needed to let me know that that wasn't appropriate to do in church. I don't know what you think about that, but I guess I should ask the Lord what he thinks about that. Anyway, these people are feeling like God has abandoned them. That's what they're feeling. And they don't feel his love. They don't recognize his presence. And so that core belief is being challenged in them that we read about in the beginning of the chapter about, we don't feel like, do you love us? That's the core belief. We have to know that God has stated emphatically, I've always loved you. And when that core belief is challenged, there's all sorts of wackiness that we can start to walk in, like they are here, that can lead to a life full of sin, debauchery, just really disappointing the Lord. And anyway, I'm going to go to the end of verse 7 where it says, by treating Yahweh's table as though it deserves no respect, is it not wrong to offer your blind, lame, and sick animals as sacrifices to me? Try offering them to your governor. Would he be pleased with you? Would he show you favor, says Yahweh, commander of angel armies? Now try flattering me with inappropriate sacrifices, that I may be gracious to you. When you offer me such sacrifices, do you expect me to show you favor? Asks Yahweh, commander of angel armies. That phrase, do you expect me to show you favor, is the same as if he was saying, do you expect me to lift up your face? Do you expect me to give you joy and to give you peace and to give you something to look forward to when you're treating me like this? So, gosh, down here in the notes it says, this is some of the strongest father imagery in the Old Testament before the birth of Christ that he uses here about respecting your father, respecting your masters, honoring your fathers. And also the table here that they're describing, it could be the table where they have communion, but it's most likely the bronze altar where the sacrifices were offered. And it was the duty of the priests to ensure that offerings to God did not include unacceptable animals. They had to be animals that were perfect, without blemish, without spot. And this was also a prophetic picture of what Jesus would be like as the spotless Lamb of God, that he was sacrificed ultimately on the altar of the cross. And he was without sin. He never sinned in his entire life. And so that is the same as if they were offering sin-filled animals, if they were blemished, if they were injured, if they, had crooked legs, or they were spotted, or something was unacceptable as to what God had said was acceptable. And he says, "Now try flattering me with inappropriate sacrifices that I may be gracious to you." And that flattery, that picture is stroking the face of God like this, like try stroking my face, or seeking my face with inappropriate sacrifices that I may be gracious to you. When you offer me such sacrifices, do you expect me to show you favor? Do you expect me to lift up your face? Do you expect me to be gracious to you? Asks Yahweh, commander of angel armies. This is seen as God being sarcastic. He is actually being sarcastic back to them because of the triliteral verbal root, which means flattering. It's the same as the word used to describe the sick animals in the previous verse. And in verse 10 he says, "It would be far better to halt temple worship altogether, and one of you shut the temple gates so that you would not keep lighting worthless fires on my altar. I'm not pleased with you, and I will not accept any offerings from your hands," says Yahweh, commander of angel armies. From one end of the world to the other, or from the rising of the sun to the setting of the sun, it says in the notes, "My name will be great among the nations. In every place, incense and a pure offering will be offered to my name. All over the world, my name will receive honor," says Yahweh, commander of angel armies. In verse 12 it says, "But your actions actually dishonor me." So I just want to make this main point today. It's that core belief, does God love me? That begins, it's what we believe that leads to our actions. And so this begins this gradual pull to having actions that would dishonor God. And it is just absolutely the sickness in our world and the remedy in our world at the same time. The sickness is the core belief that God has either abandoned you individually because of something that's happened in your life, and that he doesn't love you, and then the remedy is to repent of that and to take him at his word, to begin to believe him again, and not to dishonor him with your actions, because walking away from him because you don't think that he heard your prayer or loved you or saved your, like in our family, saved your loved one, is not the truth. He says he always and ever will love us. And even in the darkest times when we don't understand or know what's happening, he's still working. And he's still loving us. That love cannot be stopped. It's a fountain that cannot ever be put out. All right, so you profane my name by being bored with the Lord's table and considering it to be common. You say that what you offer me has no worth. You also say we're fed up with all this. And you turn up your nose in disgust, says Yahweh, commander of angel armies. You offer me injured, crippled, diseased animals, and I'm not going to accept your sacrifices. Even the notes say these are stolen animals, some of them. This is Yahweh speaking to you. And literally it says in verse 12, you say that what you offer me has no worth, and it says, literally this means you poke holes in my honor in saying or whispering that the master's table is contaminated and that the food you place on it is worthless. And it's most likely a picture of gossiping and spreading doubt in God through gossiping, like just whispering things that aren't true about God to other people. A curse rests on the cheat who has a perfect male offering in his flock and vows to give it to God, but then sacrifices a puny imperfect animal to me. For I am a great king, says Yahweh, commander of angel armies, and my name is to be formidable or revered or feared among the nations. I just have this picture, thinking about the person, whoever this cheat is back in this time, who would leave the one animal that is beautiful and perfect for them to feast on, and give the puny animal to the Lord's table, the sacrifice. And what that must have tasted like to eat that, knowing that you had just sinned against God. That wasn't, it's like an abomination. I think must have been scary. And I wanted to go back, because that's the end of chapter 1. I wanted to read to you, kind of just to give them the benefit of the doubt, to show you how mankind gets like this, you and I, how this happens. This is sort of their situation. We read about this in the introduction of Malachi, but I just want to read this paragraph again to remind us what the people were dealing with. I'm on page 428. Several generations had passed since the Israelite exiles started returning from captivity in Mesopotamia, Babylon, and Persia. The mighty kingdom of David and Solomon with its gleaming temple had not yet been fully restored as they had hoped. Governors reporting to Persia were in charge. Religious and spiritual life was at a low ebb. The priests were discouraged, and they were corrupt. Israel had been reduced to a struggling little nation desperately trying to rebuild. People were neglecting their tithes, which were to provide resources for God's house. It's not like it used to be, that's for sure, was the going sentiment of Malachi's time. So they were all sort of saying, it's not like it used to be. Things aren't as they were. Things aren't what our fathers and mothers had. The hope for a renewed Davidic kingdom had not come to pass, and the newly rebuilt Second Temple in Jerusalem was a shadow of what Solomon's first temple had been. It wasn't like the magnificent temple that Solomon had built. All right. So anyway, that's chapter 1. And tomorrow on Monday, we'll be in chapter 2, talking about the unfaithful priests, the unfaithful Israel that Malachi has to rebuke. And I don't know if anybody came on with me today. I didn't see anyone come on. I know Sundays are hard to get on here if you're at church. Or you might be sleeping in. Okay, so bless your day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.